I think what really allowed me to pass on the interview was that.
Alright, hey guys, welcome back to another video. I'm here with my friend Thomas Tan, and we're going to be talking about internships today and tips and little tricks along the way that can help aid you in your search for internships or just the interview process in general. A little bit of background about ourselves. I had an internship in the past in my freshman year with the Air Force, and Thomas has an internship with Amazon in the winter. So with that said, let's get started. Alright, so just jumping right into it, I'll get started with my story as a freshman interning with the Air Force. A lot of people have just a misconception that, freshmen can't get internships, especially in computer science, because they need experience to get an internship, and they can't get that internship without having experience. It's kind of like a catch-22, and it discourages a lot of people, but there are ways that you can get an internship as freshmen. I have some friends that also have gotten internships as freshmen before, and I just kind of want to demystify the process a little bit. The core thing to note is outreach as a freshman is the most important step. A lot of people will just go through the regular sites and just apply through websites and not contact any recruiters in particular, and just hope and wish that they'll get contacted by the companies. But the thing is, as a freshman, it's imperative that you actually go out of your way to get in contact with recruiters, get in contact with the people who make the hiring decisions for internships, because the automatic system that filters through applications will most likely just toss your application out of the window because of the certain keywords that you're missing on your application and things like that. If you go and have a real connection with one of the recruiters at a company, you're more likely to be able to show your passion for computer science or whatever you're applying for and get an internship. And that's how I got my internship, actually. I reached out in February and didn't really hear back until like the last day of school when I was packing up all of my stuff to go back home, which it was really unexpected, but that goes to show that you need to be prepared for anything that could happen, and also to just snatch all of the opportunities that might come towards you even if you're not ready for it.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the hardest things as a freshman to get an internship is having experience. And so you might not have direct work experience, but let's say you're already taking data structures and algorithms. Let's say you already took object-oriented programming. One thing employers are scared of is employing someone who's inexperienced, has no experience coding, even though they're majoring in computer science. They might not have any experience actually coding. And so putting relevant coursework down on your resume as a freshman is very important. If you've completed data structures and algorithms, that's a huge bonus as a freshman because most freshmen have not done that. So I know of a few freshman-specific internship programs. A few of them are Microsoft Explorer, Facebook University, Google Step. There's a Twitter one, and there's also a 2 Sigma one, I believe. And you should apply to those. And the reason they're catered towards freshmen and why freshmen can get them is because along with your resume and cover letter, you also have to write an essay. That allows them to look more into your background that's not necessarily CS oriented. It's more like, how are you in the technology field? What interests you? How are you different? So that's a lot of how companies get diversity in the workforce. They really look for diversity. Like, let's say you're a minority group, definitely apply for those specific programs. In addition to those programs, you should also apply to, let's say, the Air Force. My friend who's a freshman, he had a Toyota internship. Just apply everywhere. And so my freshman year, I made the mistake of only applying to, say, 50 companies and only in my direct area. Big mistake. But I learned from my mistakes now, and I've actually applied everywhere over the United States.
So one of the things I note about what Thomas said is that the applications, a lot of the times for the freshman and second year programs, require essays for you to write. And that also ties into the point where you need to be able to show your dedication and your willingness to put in a lot of work and a lot of hours into crafting something that the companies can appreciate. Because you don't have experience, the companies use the essays as a way to filter out all the ones who just kind of don't really want to do that much work. And that's a big red flag for a lot of the companies, which is why they put those essays there. Another thing that is really huge is projects. And the interview for the internship that I got for the Air Force actually came through from one of the projects that I did back in high school. I was interested in AR and VR technologies, and they saw on my resume that I had built a Microsoft HoloLens app at one of the hackathons, and they took note of that. They asked me a few questions, see if I'd also be interested in working in VR because the fields are kind of closely related. And I did well in the interview and I got the job, so.
Yeah, one more thing just about applying to internships is getting burned out from applying. So a lot of times career fair rolls around, a lot of students get peer pressure. They're like, oh no, it's hiring season. And then they start getting into the apply mode to apply to internships, and that lasts for like a week or so. And that really leads to burnout. They get really tired. Let's say a recruiter like just told them to apply online. That really sucks, because that's basically saying, I'm done talking to you. And it hurts every single time. So what I did is that I took 1 to 2 hours every night just Googling internships, and I applied to as many as I could in that allotted time space. And that really helped me apply to as many as possible, and not just for like 1 week. So having a consistent schedule of just always going for it really helped. And so I got my first offer pretty early on in, say, September, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So even if you have an offer, don't stop applying. A lot of people get complicit. They're just happy they got an offer, and that's just a lot of imposter syndrome. They're like, oh yes, I finally got an offer. You might be like not reaching your full potential. And so continually apply, always apply until you're actually satisfied with what you have. Now let's say you have the interview. Here comes like another hard part. So the first hard part was getting your foot in the door, getting your resume into a real person's hand. And then, so now let's say you have an interview. There's usually like 2 portions of the interview. One's behavioral, one's technical. A lot of people brush off the behavioral interview, and that's a big mistake, because the interviewer knows in the first 10 to 15 seconds whether they want you on their team. And so the rest of the interview is just them trying to find reasons to support their first opinion of you. So if you come in thinking, I don't care about the behavioral, that's gonna leave a terrible impression on them. And they're gonna find reasons to not hire you. So I've actually taken a lot of focus on the behavioral. Before my interview comes up, no matter if it's just a technical or behavioral, I always research the company. I research their leadership goals, work culture, the company values, leadership principles, and I print those out, especially with the job description. I highlight and underline specific keywords and terms. If you're able to speak with the interviewer with using their vocabulary, they are gonna like you just that little bit more because they feel a connection to you. So do you have any tips for interviewing?
Yeah, so for interviews, there's 2 components for computer science especially. For others, it's mainly just behavioral. But for computer science, it's behavioral and technical. And a lot of times people get stumped on the technical. Thomas covered the behavioral, which is also really important, but technical is where you can show your ability to actually solve problems and do coding that suits the company's needs. And so preparing for that is one of the biggest hurdles, which makes people overlook the behavioral, as Thomas mentioned. So a lot of people complain about the technical, how you never use any of the things you learn in your actual job, but the way to think about it is from a company's perspective. You have your own tech stack and you have your own issues that don't pertain particularly to everyone's abilities to solve problems. And companies want to hire people who can get their problems solved in a timely manner. The only way to do that in a standardized way, basically, is to do these interviews, which are using the things you've learned in class, like data structures, algorithms, to find the most optimal way to solve problems without making the field too uneven for everyone.
If you give a good first impression, the interviewer wants to pass you on. They like your personality, and they like how you present yourself, right? So they might give you an easier technical question. And because they want to see you succeed, they might give you a little bit of hints during the technical. So the technical is not the same for everybody. And another thing on that, the technical portion, the interviewer has the answer in their mind. You don't necessarily want to find the most optimal way. You want to reach the answer that they have. And so a lot of people give the tip about asking a lot of questions, right? But this is where it comes to a pitfall, when you're asking too many questions, which is when you're not sure of yourself. You start writing code, you're like, so I'm gonna do a for loop, and then you look at them like, does that sound right? Or I'm gonna iterate over this twice, does that sound right? Like you keep asking them questions.
Right.
That really annoys the interviewer. I know this because I'm a TA, and when students come to me and they're like, so when they're doing their homework and they ask me questions on how to do their homework and they just continually are unsure of themselves,
Right.
I hate that.
That is a big red flag for interviewers of any company of any size, because it just shows that you're not willing to make some sort of leap towards whatever you think is right, and that you want to just be perfect for the solution of the problem no matter what it is. The thing about software engineering and just tech industry and just problems in general is that you will fail. You will fail a lot, but you have to figure out how to bounce back from that failure and get it right. Companies don't want you to get the answer right on the first try. That tells them nothing. That tells them, okay, you know how to do it. But what if something happens that you can't take care of? The company won't be able to evaluate your ability on overcoming that obstacle, whether it be asking superiors or other colleagues for different ways to think about the problem, or just to hit it again and again with different angles to get to the solution.
The failure thing really stuck with me in that, so for my Amazon interview, I was working the problem and then I had half of the time left. I was completely stuck. He added another level of difficulty to the problem and I had like no idea how to do it. So I was completely stuck and then I had to ask my interviewer for a hint. And this was like one of the only times where I actually asked him for a hint. Other times I was just tracing through my code and tracing through my thought process. But then I think what really allowed me to pass on the interview was that I was very confident with what I was doing and I knew when I was stuck. Knowing when you're stuck and to ask for more information is a very important skill in the workforce because it means you acknowledge that you are stuck, which is a problem that a lot of people have. They don't think they're stuck, so they just keep trying the same thing over and over and over again, not realizing that it's the wrong approach.
Right. Don't try to put yourself on a pedestal and just expect that all the answers will come to you and that you'll know everything. Come into the interview with a humble mindset that you will solve the problem at the end if you have the right combination of the knowledge and the ability to ask questions and get around and solve a difficult problem.
Yeah.
Alright, and that'll do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got a lot of tips out of it. If you liked it, smash that like button, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video. Ciao!